really warm welcome to tonight's pop-up small group. My name's Anna, I'm from the Parenting for Faith team, and this is Joanna Adeyinka-Burford. Did I get your name right, Joanna?
You did! Very well done. You didn't even have to rehearse that. That was
awesome. About. What do you get? What different combinations what do people go for?
Oh my goodness. Adeyinka. I mean, all sorts of random things.
Yeah.
My actual maiden name was Burford. So that was very easy for the first 24 years of my life. And now it's just the big drama. So it's fine. I mean, you did very well.
True love. If you love someone enough to take their surname when you know you're going to have to spell it a lot, I think that's a good sign.
And my poor kids. They're big old long double barrel
spelling. It's all good for their spelling.
This is true. This is true.
So I hope that you are finding us. I hope you can see and hear us all right. If you've got any problems, do put that in the comments. If you were expecting to meet a friend here, do tag them so they know we've started and we're live. Feel free to share us to your Facebook page, your church groups, whatever you want, whatever's going on. But to kick off, Joanna, do you just want to share a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, okay. So as Anna said, I am Joanna Adeyinka-Burford. I've practiced it for a long time, I can say it now. I am a TV presenter, an actor, voiceover artist, writer, mum, wife, ex-dancer back in the day, and lover of all things Jesus. Love Jesus.
I love it. I love that that's your description. It's hard to know which hat you're wearing, isn't it? And I like
it's very hard to
know. I bet you can still do some mum dancing. Like if the right tune comes on, you still.
I can bust out those mum dances. I perfected the bad dancer. I actually perfected it. Like the really weird, like almost trying to be cool but not being cool.
That's a skill. That's an art form in itself. So we salute you. We are going to be chatting tonight about how to talk to our kids about TV and screen time. They all watch TV. Well, most of them do. Screens are a big thing in our lives, and we just wanted to explore how we can talk to them about that. You know that here at Parenting for Faith, we're all about bringing God into their everyday. And we know that every family is unique. There is no one size fits all. Every child is unique. But what we want to do is give you guys some tools to just help you think about what this might look like for your family, what your next step might be. This is a conversation, not a how-to guide. So we would love you to engage as we go along. Yeah, Joanna's looking as nervous as me. We don't know what we're talking about. Joanna's just
working it out.
We're all figuring it out as we go along, but it really helps to do this in community. So if you're watching with other people, do chat to them as you go along. Feel free to talk over us. That's absolutely fine. And if you're watching on your own, comment on Facebook. We love to see those and to kind of respond to those and bounce off that. We want to learn from you as well and your wisdom. And in particular, if you've got any questions, do pop those in as we go along, because we're going to have a little bit of time to feed those to Joanna at the end. And she will do her very best to share her wisdom.
100%.
That's it. I've said it now, so you're signed up. So as usual, we're going to start with our key tools. So we have 5 key tools at Parenting for Faith, and you don't need a theology degree, you don't need any extra craft resources or more time in your already absolutely packed schedule. We know what it's like. We're parents ourselves. But we took some of these tools and thought, okay, how can we apply them to this topic of TV and screen time? Now, the first one we want to look at is creating windows. And the thing about this, when we apply it to this, is that it's not just our kids that watch screens, is it? I know we'd like to think it is, but we are very attached to them as well, maybe more than we might like to admit. So we want to start this conversation by thinking about what works for us, what doesn't work for us, how do we engage with God in that? And so I wanted to ask you kind of first off, Joanna, about how can we, for ourselves, how do we decide what to watch or not watch? And then how can we create a window for our kids to see that or hear that?
Yeah, I think this is something I find really interesting, because every time I think about helping my kids with something, the first thing I do is think about, well, how do I do it? And I think when I'm deciding how I'm going to watch things. I'm really sensitive. Like I'm a big baby. So if I watch something that's really scary, I'm probably going to have not necessarily a bad dream, but I'm going to think about it. It's going to play on my mind. It's going to freak me out. And I'm really transparent with my kids as well about the way I approach my decisions about what I watch. And so I'll say to them, and even today, I actually went on a class trip with my son, and they're in year 6. And then one of the kids in the class said to me, "Have you watched Saw X or something like that?" And I was like, "Mate, that sounds like a horror movie." I was like, "Nah."
Not for me.
Because I don't do movies like that, because they'll freak me out. And I think I'm really honest and open, but also I've learned to use my discernment in terms of what I think is right for me and what I should and shouldn't be watching. I think, and that's different for everyone. You know, for some people they can watch stuff and that's cool. But for me or for the next person, it might not be. And I'm also a bit of a chameleon. So I think I said this to Anna when we chatted, actually. I went through a phase of watching, it was either Coronation Street or Emmerdale, because I really wanted to learn a northern accent just so I could have it in the bag of accents for acting. And so I watched it because I know that what I watch really goes into me, and that is copying speech patterns or accents or phrases. I really absorb what I watch, and that can be good, but it can also be bad. So I'm probably not going to go and watch something that's dropping loads of F-bombs, because that's not going to be great if that ends up being what's coming out of my mouth. That's not what I want. So if I'm watching something and it's a bit too language heavy, I'm like, nah, it's not for me. Turn it off. But that's just my own personal conviction about, you know, how to watch it. And like, as I said, I'm really, really open with my kids about how I choose things. And I sort of say to them, well, you know, if you're watching, and we always look when it comes up, especially on Netflix, that top bar, it will say mild threat, language, or whatever. And if I say to them, look, well, this says what's going to be in this. What do you reckon? Do you think it's going to be good for you to watch or not? And give it over to them to have the choice. I've forgotten the second part of your question, Anna.
No, that's fine. Yeah, you've covered it all. You've covered all of it, which is brilliant. I love that what you've done there is use some negative examples and some positive examples. I think often the conversation about screen time is all about, don't watch that. Like, what are the rules? What are the boundaries? And we jump straight into that. But actually, by creating some windows into some positive things as well, like you're saying, you want to learn that accent. I just think that's really helpful. It's really shows kids that it's not just a conversation about rules and discipline and we do and don't do this, because, you know, I think that can make it really hard.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you too about framing, actually. So that's kind of our next tool. So how can, and we've touched on this a little bit, but how can we set up our children well so that they're watching stuff that's good for them, and either avoiding some of the stuff that's not great for them, or we're equipping them to say, you don't always know, some stuff looks innocent and looks great, and you start watching it and you're like, oh my goodness. What to do in that situation if either they feel a conviction or they're just like, uh-oh, this is not what I thought it was, I don't want to be here, especially if they're at a friend's house or somewhere where they're with you. How can we support you?
That's really interesting, especially the whole friend thing, because, you know, when they're at home, it's one deal. So for my kids, they will always ask to watch something. If it's something they haven't watched before, or a new series or a new movie, they will always ask. And we do really try to stick to those ratings. So my kids are 9 and 10. So they're not going to be watching 12s. And their friends might be watching 12, but that's what we've kind of chosen in our house, to kind of stick to that. And I say to them, well, there's a reason why it's 12, because actually might not quite be appropriate for you yet, but in a couple of years you can watch it. So we try and stick to those, because I think they're good guidelines of the reason why they're there. And one of the things that I say to my kids, if they're going, but mom, it's fine, and my friends have watched it, and you know, and I'll say, well, you know what? If I haven't watched it and I don't know what's in it, and there's something in it that's inappropriate or scary, once you've seen it, you can't unsee it. You can't go back in time and wipe it from your mind. So let's make a wise choice about this. Either I'm going to watch it first and I'm going to let you know whether it's okay, whether I think it's okay for you, or we're going to park it until you're a bit older. And usually what happens, and even with PGs, because actually some PGs are just about a 12. I'm like, so normally with a PG, myself and my husband, if they're begging to watch something, we'll watch it first. Sometimes we're like, yeah, and sometimes actually we're like, actually, no, not yet. And I think they're really good at, they will sometimes have a little moan, they'll really want to watch it, but they're really good at understanding the reason why that we maybe say no to some things is just to protect them. And when there has been times when they have watched something and we've, watched it all together thinking, oh, that could be fine. And then it's been like, oh, and they've gone to bed, crying or something. And then I'm like, well, sometimes that happens, but that's why it's important that we're really careful about what we watch, because I say to them, I'm really sensitive and I'm sure that you've got some of that too from me. So that's why we're really, and so I think them understanding the why behind the maybe no or the not yet is really important. And to have and develop their own convictions, because when they are at their friends' houses or in situations like that, I want them to be able to say, actually, I don't want to watch this. I'm going to go do something else. If you guys want to watch this, that's cool, but I'm going to go do something else. And I think that's a really brave thing for a young person to be able to do. I've heard stories of people do those kind of things. I'm like, wow, I hope my kids can be like that. Or I wish I'd have been like that when I was younger, because I was such a wimp. I couldn't have done that. But I think it's really amazing when a kid has their own conviction. We can teach them and try and frame things for them, but the best gift that we can give them is for them to have their own discernment about what they should and maybe, shouldn't be watching.
Yeah, no, that's really helpful. And I think, how we were talking about creating windows, I think for most of us as adults, I can certainly think of examples of where I've watched something and then it's given me nightmares or whatever. You've just been kind of over focused on something, and you can share about those things. It doesn't need to be in the moment we're watching something and we talk about that. Sometimes it's an opportunity, but hey, at another point you could just say, do you know what, actually last week or when I was your age or 10 years ago, whatever it was, I watched this thing and it made me feel really rubbish afterwards or really yucky. Or it's not even that the program or the thing in itself is bad. I was talking with one of my colleagues about how someone she knew had just been like watching a detective series and got really into it, which is really fun to binge watch something, right? But then ended up a little bit paranoid about like, oh, the door's locked, is someone going to come at night or whatever? And it made me think of, I got really into sort of medical programs for a while. I really enjoyed ambulance and all that kind of thing. Yeah. And then I started panicking that my children weren't very well, and there was something wrong. And I had to think, okay, like what you were saying, what you watch really shapes you. Yeah. And when you notice those patterns changing in your thinking or your behavior, you want to think, not sure this is quite right. And I think that was something you mentioned before, which would be interesting to explore more, is you were talking about watching your own children. You're the expert in your children, you know them best, and just really observing how they are after watching certain programs. Does it help them regulate and calm them down and chill them out when they've had a hard day? Or do they, after they've watched something for a long time, does their behavior change? Do they become really zoned out or really aggressive? Or did you have thoughts? And
I think there's something to be said for this kind of binge watching culture that we're in, because we most of us, maybe, don't know who's out there, tell us when you were born. But for me, growing up, it was 4:25 on a Friday. We watched The Queen's Nose or whatever it was. I don't know if you remember The Queen's Nose.
Nose.
The Queen's Nose.
Rubbing the 50 piece.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. We watched things once a week.
Yes.
And I think that's very different. Probably, I'm not a psychologist, so I'm kind of just making this up. But I feel like it's very different for our brains than watching something back to back. Because I know when I've done what you're doing and sort of almost binge watching like crime dramas, that messed me up, because I'm like, I can't watch anyone else be murdered. Like, that's awful. Whereas if you were just watching, not necessarily crime dramas, but anything just once a week, you're not saturated with it. And I think for our kids, they will sit there and, mind you, watch Netflix, and they'll watch like 10 episodes back to back of the same show. And if you sort of notice after, they've been watching this program, is their behaviour, is their speech starting to change? I noticed my kids were watching this show. Really cute. It was like a really cute show. These two little white rabbits. I can't remember what it's called now. The American, very old school show. But their speech started to sound like these two little rabbits. And I was like, guys, we got to turn this off. I was like, that's enough, because it's driving me bonkers. And you notice that when you start to notice, that's not a negative thing, but you might sort of notice your kids, maybe start to emulate what's happening on the screen, and it isn't, if it's some kind of Ninjago thing and they start picking you, it's a bit like, whoa, okay, maybe that's enough of that. Because maybe just watching one Ninjago once a week would be okay, but when you're watching back-to-back Ninjago, it's like pow, 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 they're going to start to take that on. And it's sort of being observant about how much they can handle. It's maybe kind of just going, watch a couple of episodes, but then we need to turn it off and do something else. And just observing how it's impacting them. I notice my kids, if they watch too much just telly, they'll just be zombies. They're just like no good for anything. So watch your own kids and see what they're doing.
Yeah, and I love that, because it's back to, you're the expert in your children, and it might be different for your kid to someone else's. I think in all the parenting things, we sort of look sideways, don't we? And we go, what's everyone else doing? Is it okay? But actually, chat to God about your kids, ask for his wisdom, ask for his discernment. I wanted to pick up as well on something else that's quite different from when we were kids, which is this whole thing of what you watch not only shapes your brain, but shapes what you're offered next, on YouTube, on streaming platforms, which is probably a lot of what a lot of kids are watching. It's not totally random what comes up next and what adverts you're shown. And there's actually a real power in framing that for our kids and helping them to understand how that works, and not just sort of mindlessly consuming, clicking on the next thing, but saying it could be really powerful in your choices. This is what it's offering you and why. I think
it's really interesting to be able to educate kids from quite a young age about algorithms and how they work, and why you will see more of the type of things that you like. And there are benefits to that. Like, like you say, there are lots of positive things. Even in what we speak when it comes to social media, I'll be talking about whatever Queen knows, and I'll tell you what, I'm going to get some retro TV gold come up on my
Yes, you are, and I'm looking forward to it, can I say?
Because it picks up on what we do, but also, like you're saying, Anna, it picks up on the choices that we're making. And it might be interesting for us to, for kids to kind of go, why don't we flick onto somebody, maybe you're linked in a family network, maybe they've got cousins on their network, but click on their profile and have a look, because they'll be shown different things. Just practical examples of, actually, you're getting pushed down one path because of the things you're looking at, which is necessarily a bad thing, but it also might mean that if there are some not so good choices there, they're gonna see more of those kind of things as well.
Yeah, and as we say, this isn't really about things being good or bad necessarily. It's just a case of understanding that if you are seeing an awful lot of something, it's going to shape your mind to think that way. And we don't want to have any spaces that God's not in. We want to be inviting God into that and helping our kids connect with it. So I think just being aware of it is a really key step. So our final tool is surfing the waves, which is really just coming alongside our kids, seeing what they're into, how we can connect with them in that, how we can help them connect to God through that. And this is a tricky one. This is the one I was most challenged by, because it's super tempting as a parent, right, to use the screen as the digital babysitter. Watch that while I just get on with something. I think actually, if we can see it as an opportunity, not every time, but to understand what they're interested in, and a little bit about the way that God's made them, what He's stirring in them. Is there a reason they love animals so much? How do they respond to that person getting hurt? What are they interested in? And kind of facilitate asking them some questions about that and helping them to connect with God on it. Yeah, I just wondered if you had any thoughts really on how to do that, because I think most of us, our default will be let them watch their thing that we're not interested in and we think's rubbish, and then crack on with talking about real life. But it is a huge part of their world, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I think we've all done it. Before I worked on CBeebies, I was that parent was like, I have to cook the dinner, go and put CBeebies on for half an hour, because I kind of knew it was safe as well, and just get on with it. But the thing about that, if you've got something that is quite safe, that's cool. But now my kids are a bit older and they've got their tablets as well. What I really encourage them to do is, sometimes they'll be sitting there and they'll be inclined to want to watch something on their tablet, and I'm like, there's a TV in front of you, and they both be watching the same thing, the same program on their tablet. Something, this is ridiculous. Turn off your tablet, put it on the telly, then I can hear it and see it as well, and I can be involved in the little whatever it is you're watching, and that really helps us. So it's not doesn't become a kind of private thing. Not that it's a negative thing they're watching, but it's just like, let's include everyone in the journey, because it's quite nice to be able to chat through, oh yeah, that was really funny when that happened, or and laugh along with them, and like you say, getting on board with the things they love. So my son, and I don't know if anyone's a boy mum, so I've got a boy and a girl, but my son is a total kind of like almost like addictive personality vibe. So he will go down that road. So his road at the minute is magic tricks. So he's learning magic tricks on YouTube. And I'm just like, it's cool, because he'll be learning it and then he'll be like, Mummy, let me show you my magic trick I've just learned. And I will engage with him doing the practical thing that he's learned, so I can be in on the journey of what he's watching. And like previously it was like Rubik's Cube, I'm going to learn how to solve a Rubik's Cube in 30 seconds. And so we would sit there together, and I can't solve one. I don't know if anyone can solve a Rubik's Cube, please holler. But he is awesome, and he basically studied YouTube for months. This is over lockdown, and could solve a Rubik's Cube in like 30 seconds. But we tried to do it together. He overtook me very quickly, because I could just do the bottom 2 layers, and then he was like, I've finished. But basically we got involved with it as a joint thing that we could do, rather than him just going in his own little world and learning it. Just trying to get on board, even if it's not your thing. It's not really my thing. I'm not very good at it, but he was interested in it. So I was like, okay, well, I'll get into it with you. The other thing that I found, and I'm thinking more along the lines of your YouTubes now. We don't do a lot of YouTube, but we try and keep YouTube for teaching vibes, so like learning something new. But also, my kids stumbled across something called Virtual Sunday School after being at Spring Harvest, and they absolutely flip and love it. And it's great because it's got the whole like YouTube vibe, challenges, self-shot kind of style, but it's all kind of like Jesus content, and they're learning about the Bible, and they do like Bible quizzes and Bible challenges, but it's kind of cool and fun. And they, it's for them, it's as good as watching Colin Amazing. I don't know if anyone's kids watched that. I don't even know if that's the right name for it. But yeah, those kind of challenge shows that you find on YouTube that are just, they're fun, but there's nothing really weighty like behind them. So I think if they can find things that also will build them up, that can be a really positive thing, and you can kind of get involved in what they're learning that way as well.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And you really challenged me when we were talking about this before. I asked a question, which I said I wasn't going to ask live, but I am. Which was basically, some Christian content is not very good, in my humble opinion. And basically, what do we do if the Christian stuff is really naff and really rubbish, and the secular stuff that's like mindless and not very edifying isn't? And you brought an amazing challenge, which I loved, which was like, actually, the kids aren't interested in what we're interested in. Like, we might think the production value is terrible and the quality is really bad, and it's really obvious that like they're doing the voice for that puppet or like whatever it is. But actually, what's the theology behind that? Is that basically good and sound? What's the heart behind it? What are they trying to do? And actually, if our kids are consuming Christian media and enjoying it and engaging with it, and it's helping them connect with God, like, maybe I need to get over it that I think it's a bit rubbish.
Yeah, 100%. Because like, what would we prefer? Like a really glossy type, high quality show that's teaching them something that's actually a bit off base, or something that's teaching the real heart of Jesus and that's the truth, but maybe is not highly made. Do you know what I mean? I know. Do you know what I mean? 100% every time. It's like, it's like that whole, preacher thing. Do you know what I mean? You can have this big glossy type, I've got it all together, I got a big band and the lights and the awesomeness, but actually they're preaching and it's making no sense and they're talking absolute rubbish. Not interested. I'm not interested. Give me somebody in a barn who's just rocked up, who's preaching from the word and speaking truth and is convicted. Give me that any day. And I think, our kids should, if they're into something and you can see that, yeah, this is actually the content, even though the package might not be really glossy, but the content is good, then I'm like, yeah, I'm there for it. I'm there for it.
I love it. And I think that's such a helpful reminder. There is also some really great, really good Christian stuff.
Yeah, there is.
Things your kids like. Obviously, Joanna's just recommended virtual Sunday school there, but we'll start writing in the comments because it will help other people. Because sometimes you just don't know what to look for, do you?
Yeah, no, it is really hard. And I guess it depends on the age of your kids as well. So I know that there was a Superbook. Has anyone come across a Superbook?
Yeah,
which is quite big, and that's done like really well. That's a really nice one for sort of younger children. As I said, virtual Sunday school is more like YouTube vibes, probably your upper primary, maybe pushing slightly into secondary school. Trying to think of anything else that's like really good. I know TBN they've got a new show at the moment that's again probably primary, called Mega Mix. So there's some cool stuff out there. Yeah, and it's always good to recommend to other people. So if anybody's found anything else that was working for them, please shout. Let us know.
I think that's great. Our time is nearly up. That has gone so fast. And so we've got questions coming in already. If you've got more questions for Joanna, type them in the comments now, because we'll go to those in just a second. But I wanted to tell you something really exciting while we're doing that, which is Joanna has a book coming out. Ooh. Tell us about the book, Joanna, because I think it sounds amazing.
I know, and you know what? This is great because you guys are actually, no word of lie. I feel like people say this kind of stuff all the time, and you're like, yeah, but actually, you are actually.
We're genuinely excited.
You're generally, but like you're generally the first people publicly that I've told about this book, other than like my friends and family and people like Anna in smaller conversations. So it's coming out, and basically it's a book that I've written. It's a book of encouragement. It's called What's Up? It's called 30 Encouragements to Fuel Your Faith. And they're all stories from my own life. So they're basically little, I don't know, little snippets of my life. And each one sort of focuses on a different aspect of life. So it could be friendships, it could be grief, it could be anger, it could be sibling rivalry, not giving up. And the idea that it's a really fun, accessible book for kids to get involved in. There's activities, there's fun facts. There's going to be an audio book that also for kids who are not super into reading or who've got additional needs and actually would prefer to learn by just hearing the book come to life. That's going to be amazing. So I'm really, really excited about it. So if anyone wants a book, it comes out in February. So we've got a little while to go.
So on that note, I was going to recommend that people follow you on social media. I've been loving following you on Instagram, talking about stuff that you watch as a family to get you doing things. You were talking to Maddie Moat last night, weren't you?
Yeah,
and she saved us in lockdown, like many families. We spent hours creating zip wires for cuddly toys and that kind of thing. And it was all about coming together. And but you're doing I know you're doing a series on there at the moment called The Juggle is Real, which we were laughing about because we all rocked up to this 1 minute before, juggling 3 different things. We're real parents, guys. This is not
real life.
Real life true stories. You're seeing it all here. But yeah, so how do people follow you on Instagram?
Instagram, I want to get this right. I think it's Joanna _Adeyinka-Burford, I don't know, .tv. Now, basically, a quick thing. There are 2 profiles that I have, because I have a really old profile that basically I locked myself out of.
You've all
that's
done
still there.
Yeah.
But the one that I actually am is Joanna Adeyinka-Burford. I think it's like an underscore in there. Just search me, Joanna Adeyinka-Burford, but it's .tv. And that's me.
Lucy will be on it, and that link will be appearing in the comments right now because she's all over it. I know it. So we've got some questions, Joanna. Are you up for some questions?
I'm so up for some questions.
There was also lots of love for the Queen's nose that we missed. That was obviously
that was such a good show. Such a good show.
Okay, so this is probably a lot of people's question. It's about limiting screen time. When it comes to limiting screen time, how would you approach this? I find it very hard to say no. How do you explain your reasons for limiting it?
Okay, so we have 2 things here. Number 1, when it comes to, this is a different type of screen, not necessarily watching TV, but like gaming, which is kind of screens. But we have some like firm boundaries that we just always had in our household. So we have a very old Nintendo Wii from like 100 years ago, and they know holidays only, term time, that just doesn't happen. So I think, if you want to set a boundary in your house, set it. You're the adult. They're just gonna have to go with it. But if you can, set it young, so it's just that's the way it's always been. When I think about limiting screen time, I'm going to flip that on its head and actually think about upping the non-screen time. So instead of it being like, you can only do this much for this long, they don't want to be told that. But actually, like today, for example, before it came out, I was like, the kids were sitting down watching telly. They hadn't actually been watching telly for that long. But I was like, do you know what, guys? Let's go and practice the piano. Let's go and practice. Let's go downstairs and let's practice for a bit and you get your stuff ready. So actually, instead of we didn't even talk about the fact that they weren't going to be watching screens. I was just like, let's switch it up. Let's do something else. And I think actually, if you can give them another positive option of something to do, whether that be practicing something or helping you in the kitchen or whatever it might be, rather than thinking about I'm squashing your screen time, just thinking I'm increasing your whatever time, your practice time, your play time. Let's get whatever your kids are into, depending on their age as well. Hey, should we get a puzzle out and do it together if they're really little? Or why don't you come and cook with me if they're a bit, do you know what I mean? I just think of it, rather than think about limiting, think about increasing the other side.
I think that's so helpful because it's so much the conversation, the focus can be around the limiting, and that, then it can feel like a battleground and an argument. But it's not, screens and TV in themselves aren't bad. It's just that we don't want them to miss out on other opportunities. And sometimes it can be a springboard. Like I loved your Rubik's Cube example and magic tricks and stuff of saying, that's great, you've watched that. Let's turn it off now and go and, make something, or let's go and research that animal or whatever it might be. And actually just sharing really honest, going back to the creating windows and framing, trying to be really honest about, it's really tempting to sit and scroll my phone. Like my kids aren't old enough for phones yet, but as an example, it's great to have this screen in front of me. It's designed to be addictive. There's nothing wrong with me that I, want to pick it up. But actually, if I spend the evening doing that, honestly, how I feel is like a bit rubbish, very inspired. I just know that's true. Whereas if I go and read a book or go and meet up with a friend or do something else, I come away really energized and really positive. And it's kind of awkward and uncomfortable to admit that, but if we can chat to our kids about that, and maybe we're going on our own journey of processing that with God and sharing that with other people, I think it really helps them to start to clock those things for themselves. You know, we can ask them curious questions how do you feel after watching that? You know,
Yeah.
and yeah, they might say, great, I love it, I just want to watch 3 million more. But like we were talking about noticing their behavior. Actually, I noticed when you watch loads of Ninjago, like it does make you act a bit more in this way. And I just don't know if that's what I want for you. I really see that God's put in you that you're really creative or whatever it might be. And I'd love to find some things that really help you build on that and teach you some new skills. And
and there is so much to do. And I always think, I used to sort of think, oh no, there's no time for it. Actually, do you know what? There is actually a lot of time.
Yes,
there is time. We just don't always, you know, we do just sort of go, okay, now sit there and an hour can turn into 2 hours. But actually, there's time to do other things. There's like, my kids went for ages without practicing any music or doing anything. And I was like, there's no need for that because there's loads of time to do it. So yeah,
no, it's super helpful. We've sort of touched on this, but there's another question just around any other recommendations. So for good Christian content, especially for kind of the 3 to 7 year old age bracket. So people might be suggesting stuff in the comments now. There's a little worship company, which is a little bit younger, but those guys did, they came from CBeebies, the Wonderborn production company. So, we were talking about some Christian stuff is really poor quality. It's not. That stuff.
Yes, yeah. I know those guys. Yeah, really good. They had another show that I don't think it's on here anymore, but called Treasure Champs.
Champs?
I think it was. And they actually made a exclusively more kind of Christian version of that as well for the States. If everyone, I don't know where everyone is in the world, but yes, that's really cool. Obviously, I think I saw VeggieTales pop up somewhere.
Yeah,
that's good for the little ones.
It's retro for sure. Like you can't help singing on the song.
But you know, it works.
It does. And actually, I would say maybe a little bit older, but Phil Vischer did some other stuff. There's a series called What's in the Bible that is in a very similar style. It's all the same sort of cartoony, puppety things. And it's pretty funny and it has silly songs and stuff, but that goes through the entire Bible. And I learned loads from it. I genuinely didn't know. I found it very watchable. So
my kids also used to love Funny Man Dan. I don't know if anyone's come across Funny Man Dan.
Yes.
He came out of Hillsong Kids and oh my goodness, they would be howling with laughter. He's just really funny. Someone said Cheeky Pandas. Kids love the Cheeky Pandas. They love the Cheeky Pandas.
And again, I'm like, do I want to listen to this again? Well, you do. My kids love the God is bigger than a dinosaur, or whatever it is. And I'm like, this isn't like the world's most in-depth theology, but you're absolutely loving it. And great, each to their own.
Yeah, as long as they're liking it, it teaches the truth. It's like, okay.
Yeah, fantastic. Right, one more question, because then we're going to let people go to their conversations, but there's been some great suggestions. And if you're watching this back, if you're watching on catch up, we'd still love to hear from you. So pop in the comments, anything that you'd recommend, anything you found helpful for your family. And when we stick it on our website, we'll add all of those ideas and we can keep kind of building on that as a community. This is someone saying, if a child doesn't have a negative response for TV, would you say don't worry about too much TV? For example, my son only watches Alpha Blocks, Number Blocks, and Bluey. The ultimate pure and holy trio.
The ultimate trio. Has he started on colour? He or she started on Colour Blocks? Because that's the latest.
Colour Blocks was a revelation. I didn't even know that was a thing.
In the Blocks family, yeah. I think, I still think there's probably a limit to what's healthy. If you were watching, 24 hours Alpha Block. I mean, it's great. The thing is, it's great stuff because actually Alpha Block is amazing for early phonics. Bluey, I love Bluey personally. It's brilliant example.
Grown up doesn't. The adults like it more than children.
So fun. Love Bluey. I think they're really good shows to be watching. But I still probably think, and this is just my opinion, if that was my child, there's probably still a time that I'd be like, should we go do something else? Because there's only so much, you want to sit. And also I don't know what the impact as well is visually. Watching a screen for too long on our site and everything. There's a lot more kids who have to wear glasses these days, and I do wonder whether it's because of our the amount of time we spend on screens. So I do think, I'm an outdoorsy person, so I can't stay indoors all day on a Saturday. I'm like, get me out of here. So I would, even if my kids were just watching like super positive stuff. My kids have never really, they were quite safe in what they watch, but I still would drag them away from it to go, come on, let's go for a walk, come, let's go and ride our bikes or whatever, because I just think we need to be well-rounded anyway.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's super helpful. Joanna, this has been such a fun discussion. It's been really interesting, and I think it will really help people to find their next steps. So we're going to let you guys head off now and go into your discussions, whether that's in someone's living room, in your church, online, however you want to continue this conversation. There are notes on our website if you want ideas of things to discuss, but also feel free to just throw it open and say, what did you think? What did you agree with or disagree with? What does this look like in your family? We're going to be back on next Thursday, actually, Thursday the 28th. We've got a one-off evening called 3 Ways to Connect with God. And that's to celebrate the launch of my book, Being God's Child, A Parent's Guide, that came out a couple of months ago. And just to say, we are so busy, we're juggling so many different things. But we can still connect with God in the midst of that. And we're going to look at 3 different ways to do that, try it out, be super practical. So do come along to that either on your own, or again, if you want to watch with your church community, that's great. And then we're going to be back with another pop-up small group in October. I think it's the 30th. Someone will correct me. I don't think it is. It's the 10th Tuesday. No, it's 17th actually. 17th. Follow all our social media and you'll see it on there. But that is talking to our kids about decision making. Throughout their lives, our kids have to make hundreds of decisions, big ones, small ones, including what to watch or not watch on TV. And Rachel Turner is going to be joining us to equip us with that. But for now, thank you so much, Joanna. We have loved having you. Please do go and buy Joanna's book when it's out. We've put the Amazon pre-order link up and also the link to Joanna's correct Instagram, which Lucy has checked. So don't worry, even if you don't know what it is, Joanna, we do. And we're all backing you and following you. We love you. We're so grateful for what you do. And thanks so much for your time tonight.
Thank you for having me. Nice to meet you all.